Hi, and welcome back to Setting the Pace. Welcome to episode 6. And this episode is going to be a bit different. As you can tell, we're in a new studio, and I'm actually not filming or recording from Malta. I'm in Shoreditch, London, which sounds really crazy to say because has always been a very big dream of mine to be able to interview people internationally. And here we are, which is just amazing. And I'm so excited to share this with you. So the drive for this podcast, whether I've sat across athletes that are making waves or business people that are really trying to change the industry that they're working in, has always been with one sole purpose. And that's to understand the human behind the journey and their story, which I find inspiring, and really understand the mindset that has brought them to that point. So it's no surprise when I introduce my next guest and why I'm actually sat here today, got on a plane, came all the way to London to interview this very, very, very special founder. And what inspired me most is that this is someone who, in my eyes, is an unlikely entrepreneur because she speaks so humbly of herself, but has built not one, but two businesses together with her partner. And they have created a community with over 30,000 users that is revolutionizing social media here in the UK. And this is Cliq. It's an app where you can basically find like-minded people and join in real-life events, which I think is so needed nowadays. And yes, we've got Nicola Gunby today, who will be sharing her story of how she became a founder when she never really knew that was something she wanted to do. And then how she created not one, but two highly successful businesses. And now she's really just revolutionizing social media and connecting people like never before. Here we go. Hi, I'm Maria, and welcome to Setting the Pace. This podcast was born out of the curiosity to understand the mindset behind the outcomes we spend years chasing, be it in sports, business, relationships, and everything in between. I want to learn more about the person you become and achieving anything that's worth your time, and how you can set the pace to get exactly there. Nicola Gunby, welcome to Setting the Pace. I am so excited to have you here. And thanks so much for accepting my Instagram message.
No, thank you so much for having me. Really excited to be on the podcast.
Really someone that hops between loving social media and kind of hating it because it's like sometimes can be a bit distorting. But then it's also really beautiful because I get to connect people like
Very
you, which I probably would never had access to, especially being from such a small country. And yeah, I really appreciate you just like saying yes and being open-minded and coming on the podcast.
That's the true power of social media, isn't it? Being able to connect with people in totally different countries. And yeah, when I received the message, it's just, an opportunity that I couldn't pass up on.
Yeah, thanks so much. So I'm just going to dive right in. And I'm just going to start by saying success is really messy. And kind of what does success even mean? It's for so many people, so many things. And like I said in the intro, for me, you are an unlikely entrepreneur because I don't think it's something from what we've spoken about that you ever went into saying, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to get this. It was just like you were trying to figure things out. And it led to this beautiful kind of story. So my first question to you is, do you have a childhood memory that you can say, okay, this is when I knew I wanted to do something a bit out of the norm, or not? Like, well, what did that look like?
I wouldn't say so. I think my whole life, I always thought I wouldn't do anything amazing. I grew up in quite a small town, and yeah, although there was a lot of people in my school, a lot of friends around me, I didn't really know anyone that had started a business or done anything kind of like outside the norm. It was very much the traditional, you go to university, you then get a job, you get a partner, you get a house, you get a dog, have a baby, get married, whatever route that goes in. And I just kind of knew that I didn't really want to do that. And I just knew that deep down, I wanted to get out from where I lived. I didn't want to be part of that kind of like small town mentality. I think maybe I did know deep down there was something I could do, but I didn't really have the drive in me. I think I had to build that drive myself. And the crucial part for me was leaving where I'm from. So I'm from Nottingham, but leaving that and actually going traveling. I'd say when I was growing up in my kind of like school life, I just didn't really have a path. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was very swayed by other people. I've always been very creative. Even like in college, I never really did like one full course. I was doing all these different courses, just trying out different things. And then I realized how creative I was, and I love like fashion, photography, all those type of courses, English, as opposed to like science or anything like that. And I applied for university, even though I knew I didn't want to go. You just get kind of like swept up into it.
Did you, because your friends were applying and you were like, I need to just, I don't know what I want to do, but my friends are doing it, so I'm just going to follow.
Exactly, yeah. And it's kind of like, it's sheep, isn't it? You follow the herd. You do what everyone else is doing sometimes. And schools do kind of really push you to just apply, see what happens. So I applied and I thought, I'm not going to get in. So that's my reason. Like, I'm not going to go because I'm not going to get in. And then on results day, I got in and I was like, okay, I might as well try it. Went to Birmingham University. I was the only one out of my friends that went there, so I didn't know anyone. And I studied a fashion course. It's kind of like fashion communications management, PR and stuff. So it was an interesting course, but I hated every minute of it. I think I lasted 2 months, 3 months.
And what made you feel like I really can't do this? Like, was it the actual course, or was it not having the familiar friends and faces? What was it that really made you feel like, no way? Can't do this.
I think like it's such a overwhelming period of your life. Like you're finally an adult, you're away from home, you're gonna learn how to cook, clean, do all these things. You're shopping on your own, whereas like your whole life you've been in your parents' house and they help you with these things. And then you get pushed into a flat with people that you don't know. Mm-hmm. And if you don't get on with them, if you don't click with them, then that's kind of like majority of your time spent. The course was okay, but I didn't feel like it was enough. I was like, okay, like I've got to do 3 years of this. It's a long time. Also, didn't feel like where the halls were, it wasn't a very safe area. There was a lot of things happening. And I think probably 1 month in, I knew this wasn't for me, but I was like, okay, stick it out a bit longer. Like I've literally done like 2-3 weeks of this course. And then, yeah, about 2-3 months in, I just knew, I just deep down, I was like, it's not for me. I'm wasting my time, wasting money, wasting everything. Like I might as well just go home. So yeah, I called my parents up and I was like, I'm quitting. And they're always super supportive. So they were like, just do what you want to do. If you're not enjoying it, what's the point in being there for another 3 years? And yeah, went back home and just got a job, a regular kind of like office job, whilst I again tried to figure out what I wanted to do. But it felt so backwards because all my friends had gone to university, had these courses they were really enjoying. They knew they were on the right path. They had something in their mind what they wanted to do. And I felt like I was taking a massive step back. And I was like going back to live with my parents and being like, I still don't know what I want to do. And it's so scary.
And maybe also a bit isolating because all your friends were at uni and then you went back to Nottingham and you were alone.
Yes.
And you were like, okay, I'm pretty sure. Because there's also a lot of expectations, right, around university. Like, It's like, go, make the most of it, really enjoy your uni time. And like, that's fantastic if that is what happens. Yeah. But not everybody experiences that. And yours was the opposite. You felt alone. You hated your course and you're back living with your parents.
Yes. And then I had to go out and get a job because mom was like, okay, you need to go and get some money.
And what was that
living
job?
At home, a receptionist.
Oh, okay.
So it was, very boring, let's say. Just didn't really instill any of that creativity that I had. Very repetitive job. I'm grateful for it. I'm always grateful for the things that I've done. But throughout that time, I think I was doing it for probably about 2 years. I got a bit stuck, maybe a bit comfortable. And in that time, I was like, okay, what can I do to instill that creativity? And I was like, I love makeup. I'm going to become like a makeup artist. So I started to do a makeup artistry course, which is like every weekend. So I was working 9 to 5. And then every weekend I'd travel up to Manchester. I'd drive there. And I'd do this Saturday day makeup course for, I think, maybe 4 or 5 months. And I loved it. And that was kind of like my passion. And then I'd go back to work on the Monday, like, can't wait for Saturday. And that was also giving me something to do whilst my friends were at university, and it was keeping me really busy. And I just felt like I'd found something that I was so passionate about. But then also that I knew that when I'd finish this course, there's probably not many opportunities around where I live. I think as well with the beauty industry, it's such a word of mouth industry. So it's kind of like you trust people from recommendations, who you know your friend's been to, your mum's been to, all of that kind of stuff. But where I'm from, the probably only makeup artistry jobs I could get was maybe weddings, people getting married, people going to weddings. Even like people didn't really get their makeup done for like nights out and stuff like that because it's quite a small town. So I knew that I had this skill and this passion, but I was like, I don't know what to do next with it. I was doing like some random like work for free and all of this kind of stuff, trying to build up my portfolio. I was traveling to like Birmingham, Manchester, doing these photo shoots because there was nothing around me. But I was like, still felt stuck. Just like, how can I have gone through all these 3 years of working really hard? I saved lots of money, doing this makeup artist course and still feeling like I'm stuck. And that's when I knew like, okay, I need to get out from where I'm from. I need to see the world. I need to see what's out there. Also, I'd only ever really been like on holiday in Europe. I didn't know anything about the other side of the world. So it was also a period where you see people in like kind of like the year above you taking these gap years and going traveling. And you see it on Instagram and you'd be like, oh my God, this is so cool. So I said to my boyfriend, he was at uni at the time, he was in Lincoln, so it wasn't far from Nottingham. I was like, let's go traveling. Like, we have to go traveling. And he was like, okay, why not? Like, he also didn't really know what he wanted to do after he finished his course and was maybe feeling a little bit lost himself too. So I went to my mum and I was like, Mum, I'm gonna book a one-way flight to Thailand. And she was like, absolutely not. Like, no way are you doing that?
Yeah.
And the next week I booked it and I went back to her and I was like, Mum, I've booked it. And she was just like, you can't like, but same with like my parents, they'd never been anywhere outside of Europe. So to them it was like, oh, it's dangerous, it's not safe. Like,
I can
can't go on your
imagine
own.
It's a bit scary as a parent. When I was 21, me and 3 of my very good friends, we went to Thailand as well.
Did you?
And when I told my parents, they were like, but why?
Yeah, why?
And I was like, why
It's
not?
like, why don't you just go to Spain or why don't you just go here? And I'm like, but Mom, there's like the whole world out there. Like, don't you kind of want to know what's out there and experience these things? And when you see other people doing it, it becomes easier. So I was seeing people doing it and a lot of my friends started wanting to do it as well. So it felt like it's okay because everyone does it. I didn't really have that fear, which is so surprising because I'd grown up in such like a
sheltered,
maybe scarcity mindset of like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Maybe I'm not going to do anything. And then being like, okay, I'm just going to go to Thailand and book a one-way flight and see what happens. Yeah. I think it felt so out of the norm to me, but still felt comfortable because I was with Jason and we were doing it together and we had that support system.
Yeah. And so I think what's really interesting is that you've been in a relationship for quite a long time, right? Yes. How many years?
I don't even know. So we got together in school. So we got together when we were like 18. So we've been together about 9 years, but known each other for maybe like 15 years.
Okay.
Known each other our whole lives.
So it could have been quite easy for you guys to just kind of go down the path of maybe getting a place together, settling down, which again, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But you guys kind of, especially coming from a smaller town, broke a bit of that like societal blueprint. Were you met with a lot of resistance? Like when you said, okay, we're going to go traveling. We have no idea what we're going to do. We're going to go to Thailand. We don't know how we're going to make money when we're there. We said you're going to go on a 3-month trip.
Yeah.
And then come back.
That was what was in our head. We were like, okay, we'll go for 3 months. We'll book that one-way flight because we'll just see what happens. Maybe we'll hate it. Like, and my mum was like, okay, perfect. Just book the one way. You might come home in 2 weeks. You might be home. And I'm like, yeah, okay. So booked that flight and we're like, we wanted a bit of traveling, but kind of didn't really know where we wanted to go. Just kind of wanted to explore, see what happened. Wanted to have no timelines. But in my head, it was like, okay, until Christmas. This is October till Christmas. And then we'll come back on Christmas with the family. And yeah, everyone thought we were like crazy a little bit. I think like parents and family thought we were crazy. Friends thought it was like the best thing ever. That this is so cool. Like I wish I could do that. But like the reason I was able to do that was because I'd worked for 2 years and saved enough money to be able to do that.
Yeah, so like mommy and dad, you were paying for it.
Exactly. Whereas with being at university, maybe you don't have the chance to save that amount of money. So people come out of university and go straight into a job or whatever, and they don't have that time to travel. Whereas that gave me that time to travel and like, it makes me look back on the university period and be like, I'm actually so glad I quit because I would never be where I am today if I'd have never traveled. So it all kind of does work out in the end. But yeah, we had no idea what we wanted to do. We're like, let's just go, have fun, see what happens. And it was like the best experience. Ended up being 3 years in total instead of 3 months. So yeah, we did like Southeast Asia. A lot of our friends came like for little trips and stuff and met people out there. And it was super fun. And then I think we decided to stay a little bit past Christmas. And we had a friend that was going to Australia. And Australia was never on my list. I was like, oh, it's just like a hot England. Like, I want to see more culture. But then I was like, okay, we're at this side of the world. It's close. It's still like a 10-hour flight or whatever. We might as well go and see. And we already had friends there. So it just felt like a bit of a no-brainer. So yeah, booked a flight to Melbourne and got like a tourist visa, which was a year. Called my mom and was like, Mom, I'm going to go to Australia. Like, I got this year-long visa. And she was like, oh, like, why? And I was like, well, I'm already out here. Why not? If I come back, I'm coming back to nothing, no job, no, like, nothing. There's nothing there for me. So why don't I just try it, see what happens? And then that ended up being 2 years in Australia. And then, it's 3 years in total, which absolutely blows my mind.
I mean, it's crazy that you just make one decision and everything unfolds. But I think what's really important to highlight is, because someone might hear, like, you didn't like uni, you quit, and then you decided to travel. When it wasn't like that. Like, it was a calculated risk where you worked, you saved.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't want someone to be listening to this and be like, okay, she was unhappy, she quit, and she decided to travel. Like, you put 2 years of hard work, working in a job that did not make you happy. Because I think it's like, if you're not happy, okay, quit, leave. But I think it's a bit more complicated than that. And also coming to the realization that, like, you're not always going to be happy. Like, there are going to be points where you're like, okay, I'm not unhappy. I know something needs to change, but I just need to wait for the right timing.
Yes.
So I know, so we're going back a bit in the story, but when it comes to figuring out that timing and being like, okay, I'm not happy right now, I'm not going to get too overwhelmed. I know I need to change, but I need to kind of mellow it down. How do you go through that?
Yeah, I think with that, like, I did probably one of the most extreme things. Like, you're unhappy, so you go to the other side of the world. Like, it's not feasible. Like, I'm not saying to anyone that if they're stuck in something to go traveling and figure it out, because it's not feasible for everyone. It's costly, it's timely, it's literally traveling across the other side of the world. But for me, it was like I needed to do something extreme to get myself out of it. Because if I'd have just, like, moved to, I don't know, maybe a different city in the UK, or if I'd have just gone on holiday, or if I just quit my job and tried something else,
been too comfortable.
Still in that cycle. So it's like, no, I need to go so far away out of what I'm currently in to figure out what I want to do. But also I didn't think I wanted to change myself, but I knew there was something in me that kind of, like, needed to come out.
Yeah, like, shed the skin.
I knew that it couldn't doing what I was doing. So, like, we kind of, did the extreme of let's go away, let's find ourselves traveling, which is, not the norm for everyone, and not everyone can do that. But I think, like, if you are unhappy in something, you need to take yourself out of it in some way. And there can be different ways that you can do that. It doesn't have to be going to the side of the world, but you need to get yourself out of that situation. Otherwise, you're just going to be, like, so comfortable.
Yeah, nothing changes unless something changes.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so then you moved to Australia, you were living in Melbourne. And I know that when we spoke before, you said it felt easy because Melbourne's such an easy place. Also, coming from Nottingham and living in Melbourne, it felt exciting to be in a city, like this big city. Probably how I feel when I come to London, like so many people and just that, like, buzzing, like, underlying energy. You were still into the makeup and you were working in a makeup store. Right?
Yes.
And what was that like kind of being a Brit, now living in Australia, working in a makeup store, not really knowing anyone?
It was, it's scary moving to a different country, but it felt comfortable because they all spoke the same language. It was very similar to the UK. Australians also love British people for some reason. It's like every time I talk, they thought I was so posh. And I'm like, I'm really not posh. But it was just like they're so fascinated because they live so far away from everything that they're so fascinated with, like, British culture. And I was like, this is so cool. Like, I didn't think that anyone would really care about these things. And I because I did my makeup artistry course before I went away, I was like, okay, perfect time to try and pursue a makeup career. It's kind of like you're starting fresh. I'm in this big city with loads of opportunities. There's photo shoots, there's fashion shows, people going to weddings, nights out, all these things. It felt like the perfect time for me to do what I really wanted to do and really make a go of it. And I got a job in, like, their version of Sephora, which is called Mecca. And it's makeup sales, but also you're doing people's makeup. So, like, on a Saturday, I'd be doing 9 people's makeup back to back, no rest, and then also selling products. Like, it was intense, but it gave me so much experience, gave me the chance to work on so many different people, skin tones, skin textures, all these different things in one day when I'd never had that experience before.
Yeah. And in those moments, would you tell yourself, like, this is it? This is why I needed to get out of my comfort zone. Like, I'm so far removed from anything that's familiar.
Yes.
Was this, you knew, like, then?
Yeah,
you were
100%.
on something.
Yeah, and I absolutely loved living in Melbourne. It felt like we'd built a little home for ourselves. Like, we got a flat and all these things. It was the first taste of actually living together and living away on our own, but also in a different country, and, like, just doing our own thing and being able to do whatever we wanted to do. And no one's going to tell us what to do.
Yeah.
And that's when I started freelancing on the side as well, because I was like, I want to build like a bit of a name for myself as a makeup artist.
Okay.
I don't just want to work in store. I want to do all these fashion shows and TV shows and all of that kind of stuff. But it was really hard because I didn't know anyone in the city.
Okay.
Our friends that were there were all Jason's friends. They were all guys. And I had to go out and one, make my own friends, but two, like build a network and build a client base. So I didn't know no one. And I started like trying to get clients through the day job, and that started working. And then it's that word of mouth, like I spoke about at the beginning. Someone trusts you, they tell someone. Instagram had started like becoming like where you could promote your business. Whereas when I first got Instagram, like you'd post pictures of like your cat and things, and like
you on the beach,
yeah, just like random things. But now it's becoming like, okay, you can promote your business on Instagram. So I started doing that. And I got lucky that I did some really amazing jobs. Like I worked at the Formula One, I worked at like the Melbourne races. I like did a lot of TV, like what do you call it, TV series, music video, all of that kind of stuff. But I still couldn't get that everyday person on a Saturday, that girl going on a night out with her friends, going to a brunch, going to a wedding, whatever it was. And that's what I really wanted to get alongside it, because I wanted like a wealth of experience in my portfolio. And that's how your name grows, because it's that word of mouth. But I struggled because I didn't know anyone.
You kept hitting a wall.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But I knew that I loved working for myself. I knew that I loved that freedom and that flexibility of being a freelancer. But also it's that pressure of, if I don't have any jobs this Saturday, I don't have any money.
Yeah, that's the dark side of freelancing.
Which you kind of don't realise until you're in it. You're like, oh, it looks so glamorous. Like you're owning your own money, you're working your own hours.
It's also lonely.
It's lonely, very lonely, especially being a makeup artist, because it's just you. And yeah, you have that human connection with the client, but then you might never see that client again. And it's kind of that one-off thing. You're like, oh, okay, that was amazing, but now what? You're not building those real strong relationships and connections. And also there wasn't really like a community of makeup artists.
Okay.
It wasn't like now, which obviously goes into Cliq, how you can build communities and how people are starting to create communities of different things. So freelancers have events, they go to things together, they have like a WhatsApp group, whatever it is, they have all these things where they know each other. There was nothing like it back then. So I was like the only freelancer that I really knew, just like sat at home trying to get work
it's like you're on the
my
outside
own.
of society a bit.
Exactly. So yeah, I loved it, but that's when the idea of my first business came from, because I was like, why is there not a website I can put my services on? People can come to me. Like Airbnb sounded so simple. We were using Airbnb, Booking.com, Uber, Deliveroo, all these apps that come out to make our lives easier. But there's nothing for beauty. And then also as a consumer, it was like, I want to get my hair done in Melbourne. I want to get my nails done. Where do you go? Like if you don't know the city, you go off like Google reviews that have been there for years, and there's just no way to figure out if someone's going to be good, if it's a good price, all these things.
So true. Because I lived abroad and it was the same. Can you trust it? Like, is that really a genuine comment, or is it just somebody trying to promote their own business?
Exactly.
And you always ask, like, is there someone you recommend?
Yes.
So, okay. So you go to Jason and you're like, I have an idea.
Yeah. So basically I was like, oh, it was more like, I wish there was this. Why doesn't this not exist? It was a bit like a rant.
You were
do you know what I mean?
Really frustrated.
Frustrated because I'm like, I'm putting so much work into my job, and I'm promoting myself on Instagram. I'm paying for these boosted posts. They're not getting anywhere. Like I'm spending money on marketing myself when like I shouldn't need to be doing this. Jobs should be coming to me because people can find me online without me having to go and find them. And he was like, there must be something out there. Like, let me have a look for you. And he was looking and he was like, there's nothing out there. Everything was this was before COVID. So everything was so salon focused, salon heavy. There was apps like Treat Well and Fresher where you could rate and review salons, and you'd have all the services, and you can book what person you want. You could see real reviews. You could see pictures. There was nothing for freelancers. And we're like, wow, this is such a gap in the market, because I think the stat then was maybe like 70% of the industry was freelancers.
Okay.
And the rest was salons in the UK. And when I had this thought, it was one of those moments where, Jason was like, if it doesn't exist here in the UK or anywhere, why don't we just create it? And this was maybe like a year and a half, 2 years, nearly 2 years into living in Australia.
Okay.
So we had that 2-year visa, and we knew that it was up, and we knew that we're going to have to come home at some point, or we're going to have to really struggle to get a visa, and it just didn't seem feasible for us. So we're like, okay, let's go traveling a little bit again on the way home. So we did like another, I think it was about 6 months. Like, we've got nothing to do. we've got nothing to lose. We've traveled before. Like, you understand how much free time you actually have when you have nothing to do. Like, traveling, you wake up and the biggest decision is, what am I going to eat today?
Exactly.
What beach do I go to? Where do we go tomorrow?
Yeah.
And that's your biggest decision. So, like, why not give ourselves a purpose whilst we're traveling and try and start something? So we, like, spent some of the money we'd saved up to travel home on buying, like, a MacBook and things. I was just like, what have we got to lose? Like, what's the worst that can happen? We try this, it doesn't work, but at least it's kept us busy as well, gave us something to do. But we really knew that there was a gap. And I think, like, both of us have been entrepreneurial in our own way, always wanted to do something, but didn't know what that was. I thought makeup artistry was, like, my taste for working for myself and being a freelancer. And I was like, okay, this is great, but I want more. Like, I know I can do more for myself. I know I could probably build a company. And Jason's always wanted to do something. So it was the perfect time to be like, let's try it. What's the worst that can happen?
You were just waiting for that ping to be like, hey, this is it.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So you went traveling again. I love how it always starts with traveling again, and that's when the ideas start to flow. You and Jason start working on what would then become your first company.
Yes.
And what's really interesting is that obviously when you started this whole journey of leaving England, traveling, you never thought, listen, we're going to go and start a business. It was like,
it was like, let's find ourselves and find what we wanted to do. And a funny story is on the first night in Thailand, me and Jason were obviously so overwhelmed with, like, wow, we're here. What? This is crazy. We were sat, like, on the beach having some drinks. And Jason said to me, he was like, I've had this, like, vision that we're going to go away. We're going to go away for a few years. And we're going to come back with a business.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, right. Like, absolutely not. We know we were only going to be here for, like, 3 months. That's all the money we've got. We're not going to start a business. Like, we don't know how to start a business. Like, why would you even say that? And he was like, no, I just know. I've just got this feeling deep down. I was a little bit like, okay,
whatever.
You're crazy. Yeah. Like, let's just see what happens. Yeah. But I was like, but that's not going to happen. And I always had that mindset of you have to see it to believe it.
Okay.
Whereas that was kind of like first taste of being like, you can create your own destiny, kind of like manifest whatever you want. And now I'm very much, if you believe it, you can see it and it can happen, put it into your existence. But when I went away, I was that person that was like, no, that would never happen. Like, it's not in our plans. It's never going to happen because I can't imagine myself doing that. But then more and more as time went on and we got more independent and things started happening and we just kind of started to be a bit more, I don't want to say spiritual, but like just knowing that there's something out there.
Having that trust.
Yeah, having that trust in the universe and being like, well, we've come to the other side of the world and all these amazing things have happened for us, which we never expected. Like just knowing deep down that you're on the right path and all these things and things start happening for you and just learning more about the mind and the way things work and just like believing in something bigger than yourself, which now I'm so strongly on. When I first went away, I was like, what is all this like woo-woo stuff? And then to actually go away for 3 years and come back with a business, I'm like, how did that happen?
Yeah.
But it's because you put it in your mind and you put it instilled in your mind.
Yeah. I think it also comes down to a bit of confidence.
Yes.
Like knowing, like you said, like although you kind of didn't believe in this stuff, and when we say this stuff, because I think it's met with a lot of like resistance in the sense because it's like the minute you start saying words like manifest.
Yeah, you sound crazy.
It sounds very like Instagram reels. And I think everyone's a bit tired of hearing like how to manifest your dream life in 2 days. Like, okay, great. But like, let's be a bit realistic. But I think it's like, yes, having trust in the universe, but also like, let's not forget the hard work.
Exactly.
Like, it's not like you had no skills. You had the hard skills, which were makeup. You are a very good makeup artist. You studied for it. You worked. You saved. Jason also had a particular set of skills. It's not like you guys did nothing and then you went abroad and you were like, okay, we'll try see.
Yes.
So I think it's like a mix between being brave enough to take the next step and then just believing in yourself, like, I've always figured it out so far. Why not this too?
Yeah.
And I think it does come a bit with that blind trust, but also maybe a bit of, I don't want to say delusion, but just being like, okay, what if it works out?
Yeah.
Like, what if it does work out?
Yeah, and also naivety. I think being naive is the biggest blessing because if you knew how hard it was going to be, you probably would never do it.
Yeah.
And just being naive and being like, let's just try it. How hard can it be? Like, see what happens. Like, we had no business experience, no tech experience, but let's go start a tech company.
Yeah.
Like, to a lot of people, that would be crazy. No, like, you can't achieve that. You can't do that. But to us, we were so naive to believe that anyone can do this. Like, you see all these people, like, not everyone's come from money or experience. There's so many people that's made something of themselves and built amazing companies from nothing. So it's like, if they can do it, why can't we do it?
Yeah. I think that's so true, because I think a lot of people say like, no, they probably had help from their parents or they had this, and you guys didn't. You just were like, let's just go for it. So that naivety, like you're saying, really comes in handy. So you guys started a beauty app, right? And can you tell us a bit more about this app, who it aimed to serve, and then kind of your transition of that back into finding your way back to the UK?
Yeah, so it was ultimately a platform that connected beauty professionals and consumers to solve that issue on one, the professional side of struggling to get work and getting known and getting reviews and all these things and getting bookings. But then on the customer side, having that platform where you could go on there and be like, this is where I live, this is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for nails, hair, makeup, whatever it is, time, finding professionals with reviews and booking them. So kind of like that marketplace type of model. Yeah. And it was serving the purpose for both sides, but we concentrated on the professional side first, because that's what I really knew. I knew where these beauty professionals were hanging out. Because when I did my makeup artistry course, what they tell you is like their aftercare is to join Facebook groups. Mm-hmm. So you join like, I don't know, makeup artists in London, makeup artists in Nottingham, makeup artists in Manchester. And people would be posting jobs in there or posting that they were looking for a makeup artist. But there'd be one post from like a girl in Manchester saying, I'm looking for a makeup artist on Saturday night. There'd be like 300 comments.
Yeah, and then like, it gets lost and that's it.
And how is this girl ever going to choose someone? How is she ever going to find someone? And it was so sparse on the job side, but there was so many posts of beauty professionals saying, I'm looking for work, does anyone have any tips, all of that kind of stuff. So it was this like online community feel that was happening, but it was also very spammy in these Facebook groups. A lot of people like selling like, oh, hair extensions, or like I can make makeup brushes for you and all that kind of stuff. So I knew where to find these beauty professionals. So yeah, we just had a basic website. We're like, let's just build the marketplace function where professionals can sign up, have all their details on there, and then people can book and pay. Very simple. But like started marketing through Instagram, social media, Facebook, all these things, and recruiting on board these professionals. And we were actually in Sri Lanka at the time, and we probably had like a couple of cocktails sat on the beach, and we're like, let's just make the website live. Let's make the Instagram live and see what happened. And we woke up the next day and we had like 200 signups from beauty professionals. Whoa. And that was just from me putting a few posts out and being like, oh, I've created this platform. Are you struggling as a beauty professional? Like, we're really wanting to empower the beauty industry and get you guys more bookings.
So there was a real need.
So there was a need for it. And that was just from me posting in a couple of groups. And I was like, okay, wow. So we kept going with the brand and building it, and I hate looking back on the first brand. It was awful. Mm-hmm. It looked like it was built on paint. Do you remember paint back in the day? That's literally what it looked like. I've still saved it all because it's such good memories. And yeah, I was coming back to the UK, and we wasn't coming back to a job. No mortgage, no kids, no nothing. Could go live with our parents. Perfect time to try something. But got back and everyone's like, what are you doing? Like, this is mental. Like, why aren't you going to get a job? And we were like, well, we've saved enough money in Australia to fund ourselves for a while, and we're just going to make like a proper go of it. And this was before COVID. So then COVID hit, which in a way was good for us. We couldn't trade for 6 months, but we hadn't really built much for business to start with. So it gave us 6 months to figure everything out, to do business plans, pitch decks, financials, roadmaps, the tech.
Time to take a breath, take a beat.
Branding. We actually went and got a brand new website designed and worked with a branding strategist and all these different things, because we just knew that we still had this amazing idea. And also what happened in COVID, everyone became self-employed. Salons shut down. No one wanted overheads. People were looking for side hustles. They're like, okay, I've got a full-time job, but I really want to do nails on the side. Start learning how to do these skills.
It worked in your favor, as in not the whole COVID thing, but just the kind of ripple effects of it.
Exactly. And then after COVID, it was like everyone wanted to support self-employed people. No one wanted to go to the big chains. They wanted to go to small local restaurants and shops and all this. So people really wanted to support local beauty professionals. And there was loads of campaigns around like empowering the industry and supporting people because they'd lost so much money through COVID.
Okay.
And also people were more likely to have one person into their home to do their hair than to get on public transport and go to the salon and be contaminated or whatever. So it really kind of worked in our favor. And then we were like, oh my gosh, like we can really, really make a go of this. Like we have an amazing brand now. It's called A&B Beauty. So it's kind of like Access My Beauty was kind of the tagline. We had like the website built. We started doing events. So we started doing like influencer events, race courses, pop-up bars, all of these really cool things where we were getting beauty professionals work that was outside the norm of what you normally do as well. Because that what was happening in Melbourne. I was working a lot of events, but in the UK, there wasn't really anything like that. People weren't having like pop-up beauty bars at events and things like that. So we started doing that. And yeah, it started growing and growing and growing. The marketplace was really growing. We got to like, I think it was like 2,000 professionals.
Wow.
Really easily after COVID. The customers were coming through. It was just like working like perfectly. It was obviously very, very hard coming from not having any network, not having anyone that I could turn to that had built a business before. So it was me and Jason Googling absolutely everything you could Google. It's like, how do I do a tax return? How do I set up a business? How do I do this? Literally Googling everything and learning the whole thing. And we were actually named one of the fastest growing beauty marketplaces after COVID in was that 2020 COVID? Because no one else was doing that self-employed freelancer space.
Mm-hmm.
And all the platforms that were doing salons, that was kind of going down because no one was going to salons anymore. So yeah, we were just like so glad that we had gone with that idea. Because imagine having the idea, not doing anything about it, coming home, getting a job or whatever, and then notice this massive boom in the industry and being like, we could have jumped on that and not doing it. So everything was working in our favor. And yeah, it was super hard. It was obviously living at home with our parents. So we're in our bedrooms, which like still the same since before we left for traveling when we were like 18, feeling like you've gone back in time a little bit. Friends were getting houses, buying nice cars, really settling down. And we were like, no, we're working our business. We're going to like live with our parents, save money. They were super supportive. But there was always those moments where it was like,
what the hell are we doing?
What are we doing? Yeah. Like, is this worth it? And then we got to a point where it was growing really, really quick. And we'd spent like all of our savings on the app, on the website, sorry. And we're like, we really wanted to build an app. So the next stage for us was to get investment. And started learning about investment just through speaking to other, like making connections with the founders, like online and stuff, and like looking at what's next for businesses. But I didn't know anyone that had taken investment. I didn't even know that you could get investment to like a normal business. I didn't know people would do that. Didn't know anyone with really any money and did investing. So this was like a whole new unknown thing for us. But knew that we needed the money to take it to the next level because it's very hard to get a start without money. You can bootstrap it to a certain amount, but it is very, very difficult to keep going. And because we wanted to build the app function, because a lot of the professionals were saying, we want to manage our diary, we want to take deposits, cancellations, because after COVID, there was also a big thing in the beauty industry of people not turning up to appointments and blaming COVID when you don't really know if this person has got COVID, and beauty professionals are losing out on that 40, 50 pounds and sat there for an hour when they've not taken a deposit because they don't have the functionality to do that and they don't want to do bank transfer and all these things. So it was like we wanted to take that next step and build like everything someone needs to run their business in one place. And yeah, knew we needed to get investment to grow that, which was, probably 3 or 4 months of like being told no every single day.
Yeah. And so being told every single day by obviously people that are probably looking at you as a couple and being like, first of all, maybe as a woman, they were, I wouldn't say look down on you, but maybe you were met with a bit of bias.
Yeah.
But also like as a couple, like what was that? Kind of, we have a business together and this is my partner and you're also a woman in business. What was that like?
It's stressful because there's so many things there of going against the norm. There's one being couple founders, which is very unheard of, to be honest. Even now to this day, after being in business together for like 5 or 6 years, I've probably only met 2 or 3 people that work with their partner. So that's very like not the norm. Also, yeah, being a female founder, you're faced with a lot of bias, especially at that point. I was a female founder building a beauty company, which is a very female dominated industry. All the investors are men, usually white men in suits, and they're like, oh, beauty doesn't make any money. Beauty's not going to be a big thing.
Yeah, and you're
all
like,
of these things.
No.
Yeah, exactly. Or they'll be like, oh, I'll go ask my wife about this. All these things. And was, faced with a lot of criticism of like, why would I invest my money into this?
And at any point, we were like, okay, they're right. Or did you never like...
There was moments. Yeah, there was moments where I was like, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? But I think having both of us helped. I mean, if I'd done it on my own, maybe would have quit because I wouldn't be able to cope with kind of the pressure. But what's good about being in a relationship and having a business together is you work together. You have that trust. You have that support system. You have someone that really understands the business and what you're going through, so can really sympathize with you. And we're very good at, if one of us having a really bad day, the other person brings the other person up, and vice versa. It's very rare. It's probably been like 2 occasions in the whole few years where we've both really been like down and been like, oh, can we do this? But quickly one of us is like, no, snap out of it, because you need to bring the other person up, because there's no point both of you being really down. So we really balance each other out. And I think having that around us, and with the investment side of things, we felt so out of our comfort zone. Yeah. But also it was pushing us, because we were like, okay, we've come from where we've come from. Like, you want to do well because of that as well. So that's also a driver. I'm like, I want to get out of my mum's house. I don't be living in my mum's, my bedroom for the rest of my life. Like, we had that drive to get out. We weren't comfortable and being like, oh, it's fine, we can just plod along. We had such a drive to be like, no, we need to get out of the situation we're in. So we need to get this investment. Yeah. Also, cash was running really, really low. And we thought about, do we need to go get a job? And then we're like, no, we can't. Like, we can't. We just need to make a go of this. It's easy
at that point. You just be like, okay, let's get a job just to tie ourselves over.
And it would have been so easy for one of us to just go get a job and the other person work on the business. But we knew we didn't want to do that. We just knew that still we had something. We're so close. And it was 3 months of literally your heart and soul goes into it. And also you're not working on the business when you're raising investment, because you're doing these calls day in, day out, trying to make connections, reaching out to investors, pitch decks, constantly updating pitch decks, constantly going back and forth with investors. You can have 2 calls with someone and 10 emails and they turn around and say, sorry, no, it's not for me. And then you've wasted all that time. And it's just learning not to focus on the negative and keep going. But they got to a point where, Jason was really like, I can't do this anymore. We got to a point, it was after 3 months, and we went for this walk. We'd always do the same walk. It was near Jason's mum's house. And it's kind of like woods walk. It would take us like an hour to walk around, full kind of like circle. We'd do it like 3 times a week. Every time something happened that we were like, oh, this is annoying, we'd just be like, let's go for the walk. And it was kind of like a bit of like a safe space.
It was like a reset.
Reset. You wouldn't also see a soul. Like, it was the middle of nowhere. You wouldn't see anyone on these walks. And it was just like perfect to just vent and get everything out. But at that time, Jason was like, I can't do it anymore. Like, it's really hard. But also, I just don't see a way out. Yeah. Like, we've been told no so many times. We're having all these calls.
Like, maybe they're right.
Maybe they are right. Maybe it's not going to work. And I don't think I want to do it anymore. And to me, that was like so hard hitting, to know that he was deeply like, not unhappy, but was really struggling. And I knew that I was getting to that point. I was like, I've probably got a couple of weeks in me, and I know deep down I'm probably going to be thinking the same. So I was like, no, like, I was being like a bit of a motivator, like, let's just do this. Like, we give it 1 more week. Like, what's a week going to do? A week's not going to hurt anyone. It's not going to hurt anything.
Yeah, can't get any worse.
So let's just keep going. Let's just try. Like, the business is running. The business is doing well. Mm-hmm. Like, maybe the investment isn't for us, but maybe we'll figure out a different way. Let's just figure out this next week and see where we end up. And then this is also another thing, like, I believe massively in signs, and so does Jason. I feel like along our journey there's been so many signs, and I think as an individual you can either ignore these signs or you can actually look at them.
And use them as like positive, like somebody cheering you on.
Exactly. And this same walk that we do, 3 times a week, we sat on this bench that we'd always sit on. And I was literally saying 5 minutes prior to that, like, no, come on, we can do it. We're gonna make it. We're gonna love it when we've made it, were my exact words.
Those were the exact
words. Like, no word will lie, exact words. And we sat down on this bench, and on the arm of the bench, someone on it wrote on there, "Love it if we made it," and a love heart. We have the photo and everything. Like, Jason saw it and he was like, "Nick," he was like, turn around. I was like, what? And he was like, "Can you actually believe that someone had written that?" Probably super fresh as well, because we sat on that bench maybe 3 days ago. Or maybe we didn't even notice it because we weren't looking for it. We were looking for a sign at that moment in time, and it was there. And we were like, wow, okay, like, that's all we need. Went home, just like, yeah, got nothing to lose. Went to all our investors and like, are you investing or not? Kind of had a bit more of a confidence in us. And that next week we had 3 offers after 3 months of nothing.
I mean, it's just crazy, number one, to think that you were so close to giving up. And you were like, I know before we met, you showed me a photo of somebody kind of like underground, really knocking away at something. I love that picture. And we'll put it up. And them being this close to success. And one of them walks away, being like, I'm never going to make it. And he was this close. Yeah. And someone who kept on going. You just
never know.
Yeah. And I mean, it is hard to have that belief, like, because it's a very fine line between like knowing when to stop because you are there isn't a future in it, and then knowing like, let's just give it one more shot.
Yeah.
But then, and maybe I am quite spiritual as well, and I know you are too, but I really feel like sometimes, whether it's the universe, a religion, whatever it is you believe in, you just say, show me a sign.
Yes.
Like kind of when I started this podcast, I was like for years saying I wanted to do it, and then I remember just looking up and being like, okay, if there's a reason that I should do it, like, just show me a sign.
Yeah.
And one of my swimming coaches, who's a world record holder, Neela Juice, was like, I just asked him, would you be my first guest? And he's like, yes, of course. And I was like, okay, just run with it. Like, figure it out.
You figure it out. Yeah, you do.
So I think it's a mix between like having that self-belief, being maybe a bit, like maybe being a bit too woo, but it's fine. And then just asking for a sign. So, yeah, that's so cool. So you got the investment, which is amazing.
Yes.
And then you decided, okay, we're going to move down to London, really give this a go. And then there was another 10 in your founding story, which is when a very big brand approached you, right?
Yes.
So could you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah. So instead of doing the kind of like traditional investment, we actually got approached by Revolution beauty brand.
Wow.
And they wanted to acquire the company.
Very big brand, right?
Yes, exactly. Especially being in the beauty industry, every single makeup artist, every single beauty professional, as well as consumers, know what Revolution Beauty is. And for them, it was kind of like they had the infrastructure. They had everything that we needed. They'd also just gone public, so it's perfect time. Like, it just felt like fate. Like, how can be 1 week we're quitting and the next week we're speaking to these who are looking to do something different.
And they have everything in-house, like marketing, branding. Exactly. They've got the money, they've got everything. It's just like plug and play.
Exactly. So to us, it was an absolute no-brainer because it meant we didn't have to raise any money again. We didn't have to do all of the, it was still going to be hard, but it gave us that security blanket around us. Like you said, if we need marketing, we need PR, lawyers, accountants, everything. Learning and like just being acquired was something that I didn't even think was possible. So I knew about all this investment journey and then got approached about the acquisition. And I was like, wow, how can a business like ours be acquired? But then realized like what we'd actually done in those 2 years was so amazing, and to get that recognition from a brand was like, wow, like so glad that we did this. And for us, it was very well aligned because we wanted to be a platform that anyone could book on. So we wanted it to be like, you could book someone for £20 or you could book someone for £200. It's completely down to your budget. So Revolution Beauty being such like a consumer driven brand at maybe that lower price point, like opened up so many doors for us because it was so well aligned on what we wanted. Mm-hmm. They were basically building a beauty brand for everyone and we wanted to build a platform for everyone. So moved down to London.
Together.
Literally all happened within like a month. And then started working with them. They had like an office of like 200 people. So it was absolute shell shock to me and Jason.
2 people.
But learned so much how big companies work, the good and the bad. Learned so much about different things. Like, I feel like me and Jason were very much generalists at that point. Mm-hmm. So we had like the overview of so many skills. Whereas going into Revolution, we could learn about so many different industries and learn about marketing and PR and tech and all these different things and really dive into it and be a sponge. Like for the whole year we were with them, we were just sponges, and we were learning from the founder and learning from the team and just learning how to build a business. And then, we completely rebranded. So we end up calling it My Rev, My Revolution in the end. Wanted to have their brand name on it, just like kind of like recognition. And just supercharged it. Built an amazing app. Professionals were growing and growing and growing. Customers were growing. It was, a really amazing time. It was just an absolute whirlwind and just gave me and Jason that kind of like confidence and recognition that we needed to be like, we can do this. And it was amazing because we were still running the company, but with inside a larger organization. So we were still founders. We still had like that freedom and everything that we wanted, but we had the people around us that could help us to build it. And then we worked with them for about a year, and then decided to kind of do the full acquisition after a year. Just like was ready for something new. I think 3 years had gone by and loved it so much, but was like ready for a new challenge. And me and Jason, you can tell by the story, we're very like good at knowing when to call it quits. University, traveling, business, all these things, and just when to move on to the next things. You don't want to get comfortable, and we started getting comfortable, and I was like, no, okay, like we need a new challenge. And we're so proud of what we built. And also I think to Jason, like it was very much it was both our babies, but it was very much my baby because I was the professional. I was so passionate about beauty. Like I loved the industry. Whereas for Jason, he loved the tech. He loved running the business, but didn't love the beauty side of it. So he felt like a little bit of an outsider in that. And I think like he started to feel it before me, like being ready to move on to a new challenge. And then when I started to feel it, we were like, let's just, move on to the next thing. Yeah.
And so that's just like a crazy story.
Yes.
Like I can't even, like anyone listening to this, it's crazy because, again, you never set out to do this, but you just really believed in yourselves. You supported each other. You didn't lose who you were along the way. You continued to build on those skills. Being open to learn, like even just being acquired, you were like, okay, let's go for a year and really learn from people that are doing it the way we would love to do it. Because I think sometimes when you're a freelancer, you work in your business, you're in a bit of a bubble and you forget how much you're doing because you're just so like on to the next thing. Like any small business owner will know, it's just crazy. And then you don't realize kind of what you've built and how it can take to the next stage. But I wanted to go back on something you said, that you just didn't want to feel too comfortable. So like my question is like, what's wrong with feeling comfortable?
I just think like nothing good, but nothing challenging happens inside your comfort zone. And like if you're in your comfort zone, you're comfortable, maybe you're happy, but you're just kind of like plodding along, and like you're not actually growing, you're not learning, you're not doing anything if you're stuck in your comfort zone. Whereas it takes so much courage to get out of your comfort zone, but that's where the magic like really happens, when you put yourself in uncomfortable situations and make yourself like, you don't want to be the smartest person in the room. Like, why would you want to be the smartest person in the room? You're not learning from other people. You want to surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. And me and Jason have always been good with that. Like, even with the acquisition and stuff, we'd surround ourselves with the top people in the business. Like, we want to learn from them.
Even as founders, you are happy as founders, to be like, we don't know everything. We're not going to pretend that
exactly.
We do.
So like, you want to surround yourself with people and things that challenge you every day, because that's how you grow. And not everyone has that mindset. I know that. And like, there's nothing wrong with being comfortable. I just think like there's something so special about pushing yourself out of your comfort zone.
I think it comes to really knowing yourself, like knowing, like you said, some people want to say, maybe they need a period of their life where they just need to be steady, comfortable, and that's fine for them.
Yes.
But I think just being honest with yourself, and also freeing yourself from saying like, we don't know all the answers. Like, even though this is our company, we founded the app, we know what we know so far, but we don't know everything. Like, just free yourself of that like burden. Like, I'm the boss, I need to know everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, that's why you have a team.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes that ego comes into play with that, isn't it? It's like, oh, I'm the founder, I know everything, but not everyone knows everything. Even like the biggest founders in the world don't know everything. Isn't it? Like, I think Richard Branson didn't even know like how to do his accounts at one point. Like, he didn't even know all these things, and he got people to do it, and like, he's one of the best businessmen in the world. But you don't need to know everything. You just need to bring in people around you that have different skill sets and that you can lean on to make a really good business.
Yeah, I love that you said that, because I think it's so like, oh, I can't start something because I don't know everything. So I'm just going to wait until I know everything. But you're never going to know everything.
Never.
And even when you think you know everything, then like life will be like, oh, here's another challenge.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
So, okay. So you and Jason are like, okay, we need to take a beat. We've built this amazing business. We've sold it. But we need to process everything that's happened over the past 3 years. And typically you and Jason, you're like,
let's book a flight.
Let's book a flight. And you go to Bali.
Yes.
And you go to Bali, and it's really cool. I mean, I've never been to Bali. My sister
you need
has.
to go.
I know loads of people have. And it's just like a really like place where I think you can feel maybe very free. Not that you can't feel free like wherever you live, but I think when you travel, you've got that like anonymity.
Yeah.
Which is really nice.
Yeah.
And so you guys are in Bali, but coming back to maybe something that's been throughout your story, you were like, okay, I'm missing a connection. Like, although you have a boyfriend, you're like, I'm missing a connection with other people. So and then can you tell us where that led you to?
Yeah, so in between the business and going to Bali was like just loving London life. Like we'd been in London for a year and maybe not really experienced a lot of it because we've been working so hard. We'd not really met anyone new and wanted to get out and do things and meet people because we had like quite a lot of free time. And then sat down and being like, how do you meet people? It's actually so hard. We didn't have that workplace where you meet people. We'd always been self-employed. We didn't maybe have I didn't have a hobby, all these things.
Yeah, and you're seeing all of these people around you and you're like, how don't we know anyone?
Exactly. And London's obviously so fast-paced, so busy, but also so overwhelming that you could go to a different event every single night and meet new people. But where do you go? How do you find these things? How do you find that common interest with people? So it's having that issue, and I just wanted to meet other female founders, just going to female founder networking events. Some great, not so much, kind of just like, I'm just wasting your time and getting really frustrated. But I didn't want to meet founders just talk about business. I wanted to meet founders to maybe go for a coffee with on a Saturday morning or go to like a Pilates class with or do things that were like just normal, but with people that had similar interests to me. And then same with Jason, he wanted to find like a football team, all these really simple things. So we had this kind of like thing happening. And then, we went away. We were like, let's go away to Bali. We really need to process everything that's happened. Bali was quite a special time for us. Whilst we were traveling, we'd been there twice, I think, when we've traveled first, and just loved it and just loved the culture and the people and everything. It was just like, it's so zen and so beautiful. And we were like, okay, that's the place we need to go. So went there and was like, switch off our phones. Let's like not have contact with the outside world. Let's do our own thing, process things, and kind of like go back to where we were when we had like the first idea. And just like, we weren't searching for an idea or anything. We just knew we needed some time out and space from London.
And some inspiration as well.
Whilst we were out there, just like you get talking because you've got nothing else to do other than sit and talk all day, and just like talking about the things that we faced and like obviously about the business and just reminiscing, but then being like, what are we going to do next? Like, we're going to go back to London. We don't really know what we want to do. Also, like, we want to get inspired, want to meet people. And there's just this common theme that kept coming up. And then
lack of connection.
And like, we were speaking to people in Bali and just like getting to know people, and they all had that same thing. People had moved to Bali and didn't really know how to find people. But Bali had such like a nice community feel. Like, you'd go work in a coffee shop, or you'd be sat there with your laptop, or you'd be sat somewhere, someone come over to you having a conversation. People don't do that in London.
Yeah.
If someone came over to me whilst I was sat there, I'd be like, what do you want? Like, do you know what I mean? It's just like, you just don't, I don't know what it is.
Yeah, put on your AirPods.
Yeah, just earphones in, look at my phone. I'm like, why am I so like not connected to people around me? And then we had like a few stories of like friends suffering with things, family, all these different people.
And it came down to the common thread.
And it came down to the common thread. Feeling like social media's failed us a little bit, that we're all addicted to our phones. We can't put our phones down, but we're just scrolling, we're just consuming. We're on switch from Instagram to TikTok to LinkedIn to Facebook to WhatsApp to all these different platforms, watching what everyone else is doing. Also like falling guilty of putting your best self out there, posting my Bali photos, like only the best ones, not the horrible ones, and just putting that persona online of like living your best life constantly, when really everyone just wants to meet new people. They don't want to be sat looking at influencers they don't know, but we feel like we know them. We have each other on socials. Like, you go on holiday and then I see you, I'm like, how was your holiday? But you never told me you'd been on holiday. I just know because I've seen your Instagram. And it's so crazy that we have that now, which one is great, but two, it started to become very toxic.
Yeah.
And I think we need to learn to use our phones and social media as a tool to enhance our life, not to take us away from our life. And we were noticing all these common themes, and we realized that there was no one out there that was creating an app that was about connection, but about in real life connection. And that hybrid model of safe spaces online, which you can join, but then ultimately, how do we get these people offline? And we really wanted to make it interest-based, because I just knew from personal experience, when you meet someone with a common interest, even if you don't know what to talk about, you could talk about that interest. Say you go to a run club, but you're really nervous, you don't know what to talk to people about, you can go in and talk about running.
Exactly.
Or you could talk about whatever you've just done, all these things, and it breaks down that barrier. And I also knew that from personal experience, like meeting people in group settings is so much easier than going on that one-on-one friend date with a stranger with no intention.
Because then if you don't like each other, you're like, okay,
you don't know anything about this person. And going on a group setting, you walk away with that from 5 new connections. And realised that no one had really done what we wanted to do since Facebook and Meetup back in the day. They're both over 25 years old, very outdated. People aren't using these platforms. So we wanted to kind of bring back that feel of communities, of events, and connecting with people into one app, which is what Cliq is today. And when we had the idea, we're like, we can't pass up on this, because as well, community had just started like fizzling. I feel like community's always been around. They've had it in churches, pubs, everything for years and years and years. But there'd been a massive dip through COVID where people didn't have that connection. And then people recently just started talking about community again. This was like February last year. And I was like, something's going to happen with this. Like community is going to be the biggest thing. And now look at it. Everyone wants to be part of a community or start a community.
Yeah.
So again, just kind of like knew we had that idea that was going to be something and couldn't pass up on.
Yeah. That's so inspiring. And I think what's really interesting is that throughout, like, from creating Cliq to creating what became My Rev, you were always trying to find connection, like connection with your freelance clients, connection with other beauty therapists or makeup artists, and then connection with other people living in London that had similar interests. So it's obviously, now looking back, it's like, it's obvious that you would end up in this space, but leading up to it, you didn't know. So if you had to just very quickly, in like 3 or 4 points, give us some like stats on Cliq and kind of what, just sort of top up of like what Cliq is. So it's an app that is about connecting like-minded individuals at in real life person events, right?
Yes. So with Cliq, we want to build communities online, but ultimately we want to push people offline. Okay. So it's like, how do we get these people out from behind the phone, meeting new people, trying new things, putting themselves out of your comfort zone? Yeah. And how do we build features to allow people to do so? So within the app, there's 3 sections. There's communities, which is where your run clubs, walk clubs, book clubs, fitness class clubs, entrepreneur clubs are.
Be any niche.
Any niche. And then we have events, which is that in-person piece. So we have communities that are putting on those in real life experiences for people and really trying to get them, out from behind the phone.
So it would be like an event, let's say, I know you guys partnered up with Gymshark.
Yes.
So it would be like a Gymshark running event.
Yes.
Or
exactly.
something like that.
Exactly. Okay. And inside each community is group chats. So that's kind of like that online space, and how we see it is you join the community, you dip your toes into the group chat, you introduce yourself, you're getting to know people, you get to know the community founder. If it's a book club, maybe you're talking about books, all of that kind of stuff. And then it's like you feel so much more comfortable to go to that event because, one, you trust that community. So that book club now has released their monthly book club. You're like, okay, I'm going to go to that because I've already spoke to people online, have those connections. I know a few people. So when I turn up to that event on Thursday night, I'm going to feel so much more comfortable because I've connected beforehand online instead of going on ticketing platforms, searching for events, buying a ticket, and then turning up. There's nothing in between. And so many people drop out at that point. Yeah. Whereas if you build a community around the event, people feel so much more comfortable to go because they can see who's going, they've introduced themselves. And like what we find is really cute. We have these events happening in central London. People are chatting before like, oh, where are you coming from? And they're like, oh, I'm coming from Shoreditch. Oh, me too. Let's get a coffee together.
How
and
sweet.
They get the tube together and they're making friends before they go.
Connecting those threads. And I think what you also explained to me was the like network effect.
Yes.
So you have people coming in, let's say for a book club, or let's say a running club, and they go to like the event, and then they realize that probably somebody who's into running is also really into yoga.
Yes.
Or someone who's really into reading is also really into finding like quirky specialty coffee clubs.
Yes.
So it's like, it's you get people to meet in person, but then the reality is that the people are also really interested in similar things. So it like keeps on giving and giving and giving.
Exactly. And it just like flows from there. Exactly like you say, not everyone's interested in just one thing. Typically, we probably have like 4 or 5 different things that we're interested in. And people go to that book club, they meet multiple people, and then they realize that everyone in that book club, also love running. So they're like, why don't we create a run club off of that? Why don't we create a yoga club? Why don't we go to fitness classes together? Whatever that is. And we're very much in like a bit of a health and wellness space at the moment. I think that's just a trend that's happening at the moment. People are less likely to go out on weekends now drinking. They want to get up early, feel fresh, and go to that run club to meet people. So we're seeing a lot of that happening within Cliq, but ultimately we're an app for any interest to be able to create a community and thrive on that, regardless if it's someone in the middle of nowhere that loves chat and there's 50 of them, that's their community. Or if there's a run club in central London, there's 1,000 people.
There's a place for everyone.
There's a place for everyone. And we really want to be like, no matter who you are, where you're from, what you do, you come to Cliq and you can really find like your home.
Yeah, I really love that. And it's amazing because now you have 30,000 users.
Yes.
We've also recently invested some money, which is like now you guys have some skin in the game. You know how it works. You're a small team, but growing quite steadily. And you continue to build these engaged audiences. So I think all of this is just fantastic. And yeah, if you had never gone abroad.
Exactly. And that's the thing. It's like everything happens for a reason. And like 18-year-old me that dropped out of university would probably never think I'd be here right now. And it's like that thing you said at the beginning, I was probably never destined to be an entrepreneur if I kept doing what I was doing, but just putting myself out of my comfort zone over and over and over and learning to take risks.
Yeah.
Now a risk doesn't feel as scary because I've took so many risks in my life.
Yeah, and like I think as well, it's like you guys create a business, but you're not saving lives or doing anything that like if you get it wrong, like someone's going to, like you're creating an app. If it goes well, great. If it doesn't, I mean, it's going to be a really hard hit.
Yeah, of course.
Financially and everything, like you're not doing this. You know, there is obviously the money side of it, but like what's the worst that can happen?
Exactly. And like people think we're probably a little bit crazy for doing Cliqs. We are going up against social media giants. No one's really tackled this industry. So like in the industry, there's like Snapchat, Facebook, Meta, all these platforms. And it's like, people are like, why are you going to be the ones to do that? But I'm like, someone's going to be the one to do it.
Can at least try.
So why can't we try and why can't it be us? And we're not taking anything away from the platforms. I'd be very naive to say that we're going to take over Facebook. Like it's billions and billions of users. We're providing something so different to what these other social media apps are doing. And I know all these other social media apps are thinking about community and how do we build communities, but they've gone so far past it now that they're not going to go into the community space, and even if they do, people probably aren't going to trust them. And we're in a really exciting space that everyone's talking about communities. Influencers want to build communities with us. Brands are building communities with us. We're going to be allowing the everyday community to have so much more than their community. We're allowing them to manage, market, and monetize and get them brands in front of their community, and just really want to help people grow communities at the same time. But I think we're like right place, right time. Like the time is now for this to become something. And like again, it's just that meant to be on the right path thing.
And I wanted to ask you, because like hindsight, is a beautiful thing. But did you ever go in it thinking, okay, we're going to do this to make a lot of money, get rich, get out? Or were you always concerned with like the bigger mission and that like you get to do this?
Yeah, good question. The thing that drives me on a day-to-day business is the mission, I'd say. So the fact that we're in a really amazing place that we can potentially change like billions of lives is actually crazy and blows my mind a little bit sometimes. But obviously not doing it for free. And a goal of mine is to have freedom, but also financial freedom. And this is just like an opportunity where we can do that if we do it right. So there's a lot of pressure on it, and it's kind of a bit like boom or bust with these kind of things. And I just think that there's so much that needs to be done in this kind of landscape. So why can't we be the ones to do it? But it's definitely a joint mission and vision of, we can change 1 billion lives. We could probably also make £1 billion from this. And I think if you change enough people's lives, the money will come. And it was actually when I was in Bali, we went to see like a shaman. And he did this like energy scan on
I didn't know
us.
this.
Yeah,
okay.
this is a new thing. It just came to me. But he had this like drawing of a person, and he'd look at you and he'd close his eyes and he'd scribble all over it. And apparently he could tell if you had like any bad energy or any diseases or anything in your body. Luckily there was nothing. It was really, really positive. And me and Jason both did it together. And he said to us, he was like, for so long you've been fighting two things and you don't know if to choose your passion and if you don't know if to choose money. Like, what are you doing it for? And he said, if you follow your passion, money will come, and I believe you two will be really, really successful again. This was before we even like started with Cliq. It's like, I believe you two will both be really successful again and do something together, because like, he also said we've been together in like a past life and like we were meant to be together and all these like crazy things. But he was like, follow your passion and money will come. And now that's always kind of like instilled into me.
Wow, that's really, really cool to hear. That's really, really cool to hear. And also leads me to my next question, is that if you had a piece of advice to someone starting a business now, what would you say?
I'd say just go for it. I do think like you can spend so much time in your own head thinking, shall I do this, shall I do this, shall I do this? And no time is the perfect time. There's always going to be something. There's always going to be some situation. Maybe it's money, maybe it's time, maybe someone's told you not to, maybe you don't think it's a good idea deep down, whatever it is. There's always going to be something that's not the perfect moment.
Yeah.
So I think if you're really passionate about something and you have an amazing idea and you want to do it, just try it. Even if you start small. Not saying like go quit your job tomorrow and like start a business.
Create a safety net.
Create a safety net and start doing things on the side. Start working on your business on the side. Start like getting your idea out there, speaking to people, trying different things. And whether it's a business, whether it's starting a podcast, whether it's content creation, like whatever it is, if you've got a passion for something, you want to do it, I think like don't pass up on that opportunity because you never know what it can be. And if it doesn't work out, you've tried it and you've worked on something you're passionate about.
Yeah.
So I think the hardest thing you can ever do is just start something. And when I look back on my whole journey, I think the hardest thing I did was being in Australia and Jason saying to me, let's try something with no experience, no nothing. That was the hardest step. And since then, like obviously like had an acquisition, had a second business, just raised investment in one of like the hardest climates, grown a team, all these things. But the hardest thing was that moment of taking that risk and being like, okay, let's do it.
Yeah, like ripping off the Band-Aid and saying like, I've said it so many times or whatever, like, are we going to do it or not?
Yeah.
So I think we've covered a lot in this podcast and it's been such a pleasure, honestly. Like,
Thank you.
I think you come across as so relatable, so humble, and like you've built this, not one, but two very big businesses. And throughout it all, you were just like, always knew what your North Star was, which was connection, which I think is fantastic. So I just have the final 4 questions that I like to ask all of my guests. They're always a bit different, so you're not going to know what's coming. So what's the best advice that you've ever received?
Oh, the best advice I've ever received is it advice? Yeah, I'd say it is. It's like, don't look at your life as a lifetime. Look at it as mini lifetimes. So typically, like when you look back on your life, and I think mine's been about like 3 years, like was traveling for 3 years, started the first business for 3 years, maybe this one will be 3 years, all of those things, like look at them as chapters. Don't look and be like, oh, I've got until I'm 90 years old. It's like looking at your life in small sections and using that as like, call it like mini lifetimes, because you can achieve so much in those 3 years. And ultimately you change the person every so many years. Anyway, like we're constantly growing, constantly evolving. So I think that's one of the best piece of advice I've had is not to look too much into the future, kind of focus on the present, but focus on this kind of like chapter that you're in and then go from there.
I love that. I've never heard that.
Have you
I'm
not?
Gonna definitely use it. And then contrary to that is, what's the worst advice you've ever received?
Worst advice is like, don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Like, I think you've got to take advice with a pinch of salt and you've got to trust your own instinct. And I mean, there's certain things that's like, if someone told you not to do it, maybe you shouldn't. Do you know what I mean? There are certain things. But I think if you really believe in something and maybe because someone else doesn't, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I think just go with your own instinct. Your gut instinct is so strong. Go with that. And the people that are telling you not to do things are the people that couldn't put themselves in your situation, in your shoes, and couldn't see themselves doing it, which is why they say it. So I think, the worst piece of advice is don't do it.
Yeah. And what's Cliq's superpower?
Oh, I do think our superpower is the team, people that we have. We've built a really, really amazing team. And yeah, myself and Jason are founders. We're so different, and I'm not saying we're the most experienced and we know exactly what we're doing, but we don't. We've built people around us that do. So we've just built an amazing advisory board, and they're like key people in the social media space at the moment. We've got our amazing team that we've brought on board that just challenge us every day, like people that are our target audience, bring them into the company and learn from them. And then we have our investors, which are also amazing in such different industries. Like everyone's so willing to help. And I think our superpower is having that wealth of experience across all of us. And ultimately, like, business is about the people. Like, if I was creating this on my own, I wouldn't go as far as we have.
Yeah.
Now it's all about the people you surround yourself with.
That's so cool. And then the last question, how do you define winning now?
Oh, good question. Winning, I think, can be so small or so big. I've learned to really like celebrate the small wins recently. I think with the first business, I was like constant go, 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 go. But I think it was that living in my parents' house, wanting to get out, had that drive, had that thing of like, no, like just keep going, keep going, keep going. Don't look back. Whereas now I've realized it's so important to celebrate those small wins, those small milestones. And like, you don't have to celebrate by going out and popping champagne. Like, it doesn't have to be a celebration. It's just taking a moment between me and Jason or for myself to be like, okay, that was really amazing. Like, even after this podcast out, I'll be like, that was so cool. That was so amazing. Just take a moment to process it, as opposed to being on to the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. Because you never really look back.
Yeah, giving yourself
and
that
realize.
perspective.
Yeah. So I think like winning to me can be so small and so large. And I try not to get so wrapped up in the big wins that the small wins don't matter. It's all about taking like each win as a success. And success is so different to everyone, isn't it? It could be monetary value, it could be whatever it is. But I think like being happy in like where you are and being content with what you're doing, I think that is success. But like success in the future to me is having freedom. But I have a bit of taste for that now. I do have a taste for that freedom at the moment. But I do ultimately want that pure freedom for myself.
Yeah.
But you can't get there without all the small little wins along the way.
And I think, like you said, the important word is giving it to yourself. Like, there's always going to be something that maybe, like, even having your own business and being free in that way makes you free in not other ways or whatever. But I think it's just being really coming home to yourself and being like, okay, I can give this to myself now. I don't need to wait until we're at 1 billion users or we're living in X place, having X car and whatever. Like, I can be who I want to be, like, right now with what I have right now.
It's very important.
Yeah. Okay, this was super cool. Anyone who's interested in Cliq and lives in the UK, please do download it, give it a try. I'm actually going to an event tomorrow, which I believe is a yoga and sound bath. I'm so excited because it's been like a week of rushing around, podcast prep, and it's going to be a really good way to like hone everything in and just be really...
And you'll also see Cliq come together. Yeah. And you'll see it in real life and what the in real life experience is about. So it's perfect.
I'm super excited. Thank you so, so much. And I really appreciate you taking this opportunity and just being so open and honest with your story so far. And anyone who wants to follow Cliq, please do on social media. Also, Nicola's Instagram, everything will be linked in the show notes. And stay tuned for the next episode.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cool.